The hot hatch, the car of the people, bringing affordable and even practical performance driving to the masses for over 40 years. But what makes a hot hatch truly great? Does it have to blow your mind with sheer abilities? Or does it need to have that in-your-face exuberance and sense of plain and simple fun as well? Well, that's what we're here to find out. And there's really no better place to start than with a car whose ancestor started it all. And that car is, of course, the Golf GTI, but this is no ordinary GTI. No, this is upgraded with the Performance package, which means power is up to 220 horsepower and torque is at 260 pound-feet, which is absolutely phenomenal for a small hot hatch because you can feel the power at very low RPMs. And combine that with the brakes and the fantastic differential fitted to this car, and you can corner so abruptly and so brilliantly with all these factors combined that this is one of the best handling hot hatches on sale today by far. But I will get on to more why I chose this GTI over the others later on in the episode. One of the most impressive things about this car is actually the dynamics. For example, the steering has great weight and great feel in any mode, especially sport, maybe not so in comfort. But speaking of comfort, this car has a very wide range of abilities, and that makes it all the more impressive. Because comfort mode is for when you're cruising down the highway, it just makes everything softer and gooier. It makes it actually very fantastic to just cruise around, and you could drive around all day in it because it's that good. But when you throw it into sport mode, things get tighter, things get sharper, and you start to realize that this is a truly brilliant driver's car. So as a car, whether it be for performance or day-to-day driving, it's fantastic. But does it fit the bill as a great hot hatch? Well, I think its competitor in this episode might have a thing or two to say about that. So the second competitor in the Battle of the Hot Hatches today is, of course, the Mini John Cooper Works. And now you may be thinking, is this car not a better match for the Golf R? But I'm not so sure, and the reason for that is it's closer to the GTI Performance Pack than you might think. For example, the Mini has 230 horsepower, the GTI has 220. The GCW has 236 pound-feet of torque, the Golf has 260, so it has the edge there, even though it's down on power from the Mini. And I think it has the advantage as well because it has more torque available all the time, while this Mini has it higher up in the rev range, which does make it a little more exciting when you're really pushing it. This car has a lot of theater about the way it drives. It's more of a fun car. I mean, everything from the looks, interior and exterior, but I'll get into that later. But the way the sound, it crackles and bangs through the gears, which the GTI doesn't have. I'm not saying that car sounds bad, but this car sounds like a hot hatch should. It sounds angry and exuberant, and I absolutely love it. This car is all about the pleasure and the fun of driving, and that is exactly what a hot hatch needs to have. Dynamically speaking, it is not quite the same as the Golf. That car has a much wider range of abilities, while this is a very focused car. And back when I reviewed the JCW almost a year ago now, one of my main complaints of it was that it wasn't quite hardcore enough for me. Well, two things have fixed that with this particular model. One, it has a manual gearbox rather than the automatic, which just adds more driver involvement, and I think that's really what a hot hatch needs. I mean, the double clutch gearbox in the GTI is phenomenal. It's very quick and very smooth, but it just sort of takes out that element of involvement. And the second reason this is a more focused car for me is these amazing bucket seats. And yeah, you know what, on long drives they are a bit uncomfortable. But when you're pushing it, especially on tight, twisty roads like this one, they hold you in very firmly and very nicely. And it just adds to the whole theater of this is a proper driver's car. Now, when you chuck it into corners, there is a lot of panache about it. It's an event because it may not be a big car, but it kind of feels bigger than you'd expect a Mini to. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because you feel like you're wrestling it in and out of corners. And it's more of an experience than the GTI because of that. And it makes it A, more involving, and B, a lot more fun, at least in my opinion. So far then, it's too close to call. The GTI is more focused, it has a wider range of abilities, but it doesn't quite have the sense of fun that the John Cooper Works does. It doesn't feel like it encourages you like the Mini does. This car feels like it wants you to have fun, that it wants you to push it and have a good time, while the GTI might be a victim of its own greatness. It is so good and so dynamic that you almost can't find the limit of the car. And is that a problem? No. To be a great hot hatch? It might be. Before the final verdict though, there are a couple more things that need to be considered. One of the most important aspects of the hot hatch is the day-to-day stuff. The Golf is a bit more practical. Now the JCW is better than you'd think, but I guess the words mini and spacious were never really meant to coincide. Now the Golf's interior, while a very nice place to be, is very serious. You know exactly where everything is, very ordered, very German. The same with the exterior. It's very pretty, maybe even a little sinister in this color, but it's not fighting to attract your attention. The Mini, on the other hand, is that kid at a family dinner shouting, look at me," while running around in nothing but a cape and a grin that says, "I've had too much cake." The same with the interior. Also very refined, but it still makes you feel like a kid in a candy shop. So this then is a battle between a legend, not loud but very serious in its work, and the other guy, showing all it's got with flair and a good old-fashioned sense of having a good time. Brain surgeon versus plastic surgeon. So, the winner of this round of the Battle of the Hot Hatches is the Mini John Cooper Works. Now this may come as a surprise to some people, and you may argue or disagree, and that's totally fair. This is a very debatable subject. But for me, the Mini takes it because it has more of everything. You know, the Golf is a more dynamic car. It's actually a very brilliant car, but it doesn't have the same flair and exuberance. And what at least I look for in a hot hatch is that amount of character. The John Cooper Works always feels like it wants you to have fun, to push it. Like everything from the sport mode button to the exterior and the interior looks, the go faster, everything. It's just a fun car, and that's important. You know, dynamically, it's far from perfect. The gearbox uses a little bit of tuning, tiny bit of body roll. I mean, obviously I'm not going to judge it too harshly because it is, again, on all seasons, but you get my point. So all in all then, both of these cars are great hot hatches, but the Mini is just a little bit greater.